Welcome back to the Coven, My Uniqas. On this episode on Uniqa Chats, I'll be talking about how certain people in the black community like to project negativity onto other black folks they deem to be quote-unquote Oreos. In my previous video on my unpopular opinions, where I briefly talked about how monoracial black folks still get thrusted out of blackness for not acting quote-unquote black enough in the right way, and I have a few more thoughts. Firstly, I think they always assume that we are anti-black in some sort of way. Due to folks like Candace Owens and to a lesser extent, Kelly Stam genuinely anti-black things, they begin to assume that nearly every black person who is deemed to be outside of the norm to be a quote-unquote Oreo, which puts them on edge because in some way they expect you to be some sort of race traitor due to the way you occupy the world. From what I've seen, some try to genuinely bully black folks like this to reinforce the idea that you aren't black enough or you're some racial imposter because they see a slight or major difference of self-expression as whiteness. Yet time and time again, some Oreos do the exact same thing that the black community feared due to the bitterness they felt towards the community because they were basically kicked out of their own culture. However, I'll clarify this because listening comprehension is absolutely nanny in 2024. This is in no way justifying the anti-blackness of the two people I previously mentioned. Anyways, moving on. The second stereotype is a thing often experienced by neurodivergent Uniqas, or otherwise neurotypical black women who are introverted. That is the accusation that you are stuck up. Due to stereotypes of black women being extroverted and loud, if they see us being quiet and keeping to ourselves, they become unreasonably offended. They assume that we are uppity, that we are conceited, because we don't go out of our way to interact with them, when most of us don't even do it out of hate or malice. Rather, most of us just like to keep to ourselves if we don't know the people around us. What's worse is the amount of insecure people you interact with, because they say things like, "Oh, you think you're better than me? Oh, you think you're all that? Why your attitude so stink?" And I'm just like, no, that's your insecurity speaking. Moving on. Thirdly, they also like to project whiteness onto us through the way we speak. They'll be the first to say that you sound white because you quote-unquote don't have an accent, when 9 times out of 10, the accent is still there, it's just subtle. Or if you're like me, and you and your mother had you speak standard English rather than Bahamian dialect, which is my native dialect. So I had kids calling me American back in primary school, which is odd knowing how no black American speaks like me, because either they speak AAVE or general American English. Yet I knew that they were comparing me to white Americans, so I rightfully took offense to that. Because not only am I monoracially black, but I'm a dark-skinned monoracially black person, yet you have the nerve to call me white due to my inflection? It's honestly a self-report when you see any black person speaking standard English or even as well spoken and you associate it with whiteness. Because by that logic, you're implying the opposite for your traditionally black dialects that you may speak, which it often isn't the case.
Of research that shows black people, including those with various accents such as Southern, may actually encounter negative assumptions about their intelligence or education level. And despite these stereotypes being completely unfounded, they persist. Just see how Beyonce's interviews, when she used to do interviews, have been perceived by the media and the public. You can do a search for Beyonce uneducated and you'll see a bunch of examples. This is why code switching exists and why language scholar Dr. Rashana Shanti Young has termed code meshing, which we hear Beyonce do a lot in her music. Code meshing in a nutshell involves blending various Englishes together deliberately, creating a hybrid form of communication that not only showcases linguistic diversity, but can challenge linguistic hierarchy. Code switching, on the other hand, typically involves switching between languages or dialects, often to conform to societal norms or expectations. Historically, it's been a great survival strategy.
Why do you talk like a cringe valley girl when you're clearly black, ... I'm happy to answer your question. The way people speak varies based on their geographic location, their cultural background, and their social environment, rather than their skin color. Education impacts vocabulary and speech patterns. Skin color does not inherently influence the sound of one's voice. I hope this helps.
Anyways, that concludes this video on Uniqa Chats. So subscribe and keep that Uniqa magic alive. Bye!